Greetings. How's everyone doing today? For those who don't know me, my name is Brad Hansen. I am the Division Chief of our Employer Account Management Division and your host for the first SEAC of the new year, 2025. And with me today is a cast of characters throughout CalPERS that are subject matter experts in various areas. Before we get going today, I just wanted to go over a few of the ground rules. First off, this webinar is being recorded. All of the attendees' mics are muted as always. All the meeting materials that you're going to see today are available on our website, and the link is in the chat. And if you have any questions or have other further suggestions on topics for the upcoming SEAC meetings, please email us at the email address you see on the screen there, calpers_SEAC@calpers.ca.gov. Just as a brief heads up, CalPERS just recently updated our website last week. And some of the screenshots that you see today in the presentation will be updated. However, the materials online we're still working on those. We're going to have the updated versions out there soon enough. But rest assured, most of the changes are minimal and it's not really drastic compared to what we're going to be showing you guys today. You'll have several different options in which you can ask questions. We prefer that you either raise your hand, or if you have a question, you could just submit it in the Q&A button that you see below. Okay, so let's go over what our agenda is today. So first, we're going to kick it off talking about charter school reporting. Then we're going to transition over to summer session reporting and compensation updates with Ken Noss. Then we're going to go over some myCalPERS updates and system enhancements. Then classic benefit validation and return Annuitant updates. We'll take a quick 10-minute break, and then we're going to finish up with Golden Handshake update, compensation compliance webpage, employer training, and then discuss multi-factor authentication. And then, as always, we'll open it up for a roundtable discussion at the end where you guys can ask your questions, and then the panelists will do our best to answer them. Okay, so let's go ahead and kick it off, because as you can see, we have an action-packed agenda today. So I'm going to turn it over to the two Andys, Andy Harris and Andy Nguyen, and they're going to talk about charter school reporting. Gentlemen.
Thank you, Brad. Good morning, everybody. My name is Andrew Harris. Many people call me Andy Harris, but I think because we have two Andys on this presentation, that might have been a little bit confusing. So I'm Andrew Harris. I'm the manager of our membership analysis and support team. With me is Andy Nguyen, our Assistant Division Chief of our pension contracts and pre-funding programs. And today we're going to be talking with you about charter school reporting. I'm excited to bring us this today because our charter schools are a bit unique. They're typically unique in a multitude of ways, but for us, they're unique in that they get to us a little bit differently. And so because of that, we want to share with you the things that make them unique and clear up some confusion that there may be around charter schools and how they report. If you're unfamiliar with how charter schools are reported or how they get to us, we want to bring that information to you as well. If you already know, we want to also make sure we're all on the same page about what to do when we have these employees. So let's go to our next slide. So these are our objectives today. So I'm going to provide a little bit of background on charter school participation. Like I said, they're a little bit unique, so I want to share how we see that and what that looks like. And then we're going to talk about the membership eligibility and reporter for charter schools. That part won't be too revolutionary, but again, I want everybody to be on the same page on how we report those and what we would expect from you. And then Andy Nguyen will explain the contracting process for charter schools, because like I said, they're a little bit different and how they get to us, and Andy will explain what we need to do if they want to get to us. So with that, let's get into it. Next slide, thank you. So a little bit of background. I want to give you a little bit of context. Why are we here today? Why are we talking about this? Well, we've come across through various ways through our work, through audits, employer inquiries, member inquiries. It's been identified that some districts and some county offices hadn't been reporting their charter school employees the proper way. And so we thought it'd be helpful to clear up what it is and how it is that charter schools get to us and what the proper way to do that is. And so the law allows for the optional participation of charter schools. The law was amended to allow optional participation. If a charter school has been granted a charter, they can include their employees, their classified employees, or exclude their employees through its charter to include them in CalPERS benefits. And then from there, they can reach out to our contracts team, and then they can formalize that process. So like I said, so we've identified this issue. So this is the context through which we're bringing this to you today. So we've identified some issues. We just want to help clear those up. So let's go to the next slide. So when it comes to membership eligibility, because charter schools can optionally choose to participate, when a charter school does choose to participate, we'll treat them like a school district in that they'll be reported under the Fresno County Office of Education, and they'll be treated just like a regular school employee. Once they do formalize that process and charter school employees are now included in the system, we would expect that all the rules of the retirement law apply to those employees, just like a regular school employee. So it's not anything different. So if you have a charter school employee that meets the immediate membership requirements, you would enroll them at that time. Or if they if they don't meet the immediate membership and they work 1,000 hours in the fiscal year, we would expect to see an enrollment for that employee at that charter school. And then on the flip side, if you have a charter school that does not participate, has chosen not to include their employees in the system, they are then excluded from membership. And so this is kind of the big thing that we want to address with everyone here is that the main message is that participating charter schools, their employees are subject to all the rules. The charter schools that do not participate, their employees are excluded and should not be enrolled in the system. And so let's go to the next slide. So once they meet membership eligibility, once you have this charter school employee, it's met membership, what do we expect from your agency in reporting that person? Again, it's not revolutionary, but we just want to make sure we're on the same page. You must report that employee in myCalPERS under the charter school. You'll have the charter school as a division. You can report them under that. And then you would report their compensation and their payroll the same way you would any other employee. And the compensation must be in accordance with the public available pay schedule. I bring this up because there had been some issues regarding the pay rates to be used. If you have questions about what pay rates to use, our compensation review team will assist you in that. But I just want to make this point that the pay and everything and how you report it is all the same as you would any other school employee. And then this last part, again, I just like to emphasize that the non-participating charter school employees cannot be reported. They're excluded from the system because the charter school does not participate in CalPERS. Nor can they be reported under another district or county office. And this is important here because we've come across an issue where employees of the school district had been loaned out to a new charter school. Charter school was just getting started and they'd been loaned out. And then they had become employees of the charter school. And they were under the direction of that principal, that school. And so they'd become employees of that charter school, and they were still being reported under the district. And because the charter school had not been participating, they were not eligible for that service. So I just want to emphasize this last point that non-participating charter school employees cannot be reported. And so we wanted to bring this to your attention so that that we're all reporting it correctly. And so the natural next question is, well, what happens if we have a charter school that doesn't participate and they want to participate? Well, I'm going to pass it off to Andy Nguyen, and he will tell us how you can do that. So Andy, you're up.
My name is Andy Nguyen. I'm working in the pension contract and pre-funding divisions. This morning, I will present the overall contracting process and the timeline for charter schools to participate in CalPERS via the County Office of Education contract with CalPERS. Next slide, please. So what are we looking for? What is the criteria for charter schools to eligible to participate in CalPERS system? So back in 2011, the Internal Revenue Services issue a new criteria requirements for governmental plans such as CalPERS to determine if a school is eligible to participate in our plans. And so we have a review process to determine if the charter school is eligible in order to mitigate risk for CalPERS plans. The things that we're looking for charter school is we want to ensure that the charter school is a public charter school, which is being sponsored by the school district, a county office of education, or sometimes by the state. And then we will review your school petitions to make sure that in the petition, it does state that it allow the employee of the charter school to participate in CalPERS. It's like the right of participation. And then we look at the governmental control, like does the school district or the county office of education have an oversight of the charter school to ensure that this is a governmental entity, a public school. And then another things that we want to ensure is that the fiscal responsibility of the charter school and the ownership of the assets, just in case if the charter school is closed down, we want to make sure that all of the remaining assets of the charter schools will be transferred over to another public school, either another public charter school or the school district or the county office of education. So these are like the main criteria that we're looking at with the charter school to ensure that they're eligible to participate in CalPERS. Next slide, please. So what are we looking for in these applications? So basically, when we charter school apply for eligibility, we will ask them to fill out application online. They have to provide us all the certification that they've been approved and sponsored by the school district or the county office of education. They have to provide to us signed documents of the petitions. It has to be a valid petition, not the one that expire. And then any other legal documents like article of incorporations, the bylaws of the charter schools. Next slide, please. We also look at the financial report to ensure that they financially sound to participate in CalPERS. So once all those process complete, we determine that the charter school is eligible to participate in CalPERS. Our team will work with the charter school and the county office of education to create a myCalPERS profile for that charter school. And then we will notify the charter school that the account is up and running. And then we will hand it back over to Andrew Harris and the payroll team to create a payroll schedule so then the charter school can work with the school district and the COE to start reporting the eligible members to the system. Next slide. And then if you have any other questions for our team regarding how to contract with CalPERS for charter school, you can email us at the pensioncontracts@calpers.ca.gov. You can also go to our website where you can download the application. You can fill out the applications to initiate the process. And then if there's any missing documents or we have any questions, we will automatically contact you. And please note the couple of things that I want to make sure you all understand is that this contract is via the county office of education. So we work with a representative from the counties to establish contract for the charter school. And once the charter school participate in CalPERS, we would treat them just like any other school district. What does that mean? That means that the charter school have to continue to report their employees. They cannot just stop reporting employees after 5 or 10 years to say they don't want to participate anymore. Once you're in the system, you will be just like any other school district. The only time that you no longer required to report your employees is when you close down a charter school. So I just want to let people understand that process. That concludes my presentation. If you have any questions.
Yeah, and I would just like to add, if you have questions about the how to report these people, or if you have questions about people already reported, you can reach out to us at our email membership. If you go back a slide, at the membership reporting inbox, if anyone has questions about specific instances they want us to review, you're more than welcome. Please reach out to us there, and we will be glad to assist you with any questions or issues you may have.
All right, thank you both. There are a few
Yep.
questions in the QA to take a look at if you guys would answer those, please.
Yeah. So there's a question, once the charters elect PERS, can they later decide to cancel PERS membership? And as I stated earlier, no, they can't. So once they participate in CalPERS, they will be treated as just like any other school district. They cannot decide later to terminate that contract with CalPERS. The only way that they don't stop reporting the employees to CalPERS is when that charter school closed down, that no longer exists.
I want my video turned back on. There we go. Oh, there it goes. Ah. All right, thank you for that. Okay, we'll address those other questions in the QA. We'll type in the answers for you guys. All right, so next up, we have Kenneth Noss, and he's going to talk about summer reporting and give some compensation updates. Ken?
Good morning, everybody. I think most of you know who I am, but one of the neat things about the SEACs is that we always have new people in here. So my name is Kenneth Noss. Please call me Ken. I am the manager of the Audit Compliance and Resolution section. For any of you that have questions during this presentation, feel free to type them into our Q&A. I actually have my manager of the Audit Compliance and Resolution Unit 1, Serena Southards, doing the moderating and manning the questions that you guys type in. If there's anything she doesn't get to, we can answer in a Q&A, or we can answer it a little bit later. So what we're going to be talking about today is summer session reporting and compensation updates. So I would like to caveat that with the summer session reporting, we're going to be speaking specifically about classified school members and when summer session should be reported. One of the things, there seems to be some confusion as to whether or not summer session is supposed to be reported to CalPERS. And I think that some of the confusion stems from an interpretation of additional duties. I'm going to walk through some of the government codes and maybe bore you guys a little bit, but come to a conclusion. I think most of you that have worked with me over the last couple of years knows that one of my main goals with compensation compliance is to really limit the confusion and complexity that seems to have been associated with this in the past, and really give you guys a summary of government codes, but provide an easy explanation for how they work together and what the conclusion is on them. So for summer reporting, you're generally talking about your 9 and 10-month employees. They work during the school year, and then they sign up for summer session. Now we're in February right now. So I figured this is a pretty good time to talk about this, because I'm sure a lot of you are getting requests for summer session positions. And so I'd like to start with Government Code 20636.1, specifically B1, and that's what talks about pay rates, but it also starts to define full-time employment. And then we'll get into what's classified as overtime for public employees retirement law purposes, which, as you'll see, is a little bit different than, overtime that we think of from an actual employer standpoint. It really has to do with compensation reporting. Government Code 20636.1B1, I'm not going to read you the whole statute. We have this neat little graphic here that'll kind of walk us through this. So it defines pay rate. And so pay rate is the normal rate of pay. It's on a full-time basis. And this is really where the clarification comes in with the summer reporting as to what full-time is, because schools have a different interpretation of full-time than what's dictated in the Public Employees Retirement Law. Government Code 20636.1B1 and California Code of Regulations 574 both clarify full-time for classified school members as 40 hours per week. Now, another point of confusion with this, which I've realized over the last year or so as we've been going through the full-time equivalent pay rate clarifications, is they think, oh, okay, so 40 hours per week for 10 months, that's full-time, and then we don't have to report summer sessions. 40 hours per week for 52 weeks, which is 2,080 hours, is full-time. So it would be 173 1/3 hours per month for 12 months. That's full-time. So if you have a 10-month employee and they sign up for a summer session, that summer session for the classified school member is reportable to CalPERS. Again, because you have to report their pay rate and earnings on a full-time basis up to full-time. So again, normal working hours. So the normal working hours for the summer session would be whatever their normal working hours are for that summer session. And then the pay rate is subject to the similarly situated members in the same group or class of employment. So if you have a cafe worker and they work, their normal 10-month contract for the school year as the cafe worker, and then they elect to do the summer session as the cafe worker as well, then you would report them as cafe worker for, again, the pay rate for the group or class, cafe worker for the summer session. And then of course, the pay rates are all subject to publicly available pay schedules. All the pay rates on the publicly available pay schedules are based on the full-time equivalent. Next slide, please. So this is where we get into, again, defining the pay rate for classified school members. I already talked about this a little bit. Full-time's 40 hours per week. Hours in excess of 40 hours per week is considered overtime, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. And it's services rendered in all months of the year. Now, I touched on this a little bit in the previous slide. Full-time is 40 hours per week for 52 weeks or 12 months out of the year. So if they work 10 months and they have a summer session for an additional 2 months, you're reporting all the services rendered in all months of the year up to full-time, which is 40 hours per week. Next slide, please. So this is when we go into Government Code 20635.1, and really we're nailing down overtime as it is defined in the Public Employees Retirement Law. Now, this is where I go into it can be a little bit different than how you think of overtime as a school employer, because I know some school employers, depending on your contract, you could have a full-time person who's 32 hours a week. Maybe you consider additional duty or overtime, time in excess of the 32 hours per week. So Government Code 20635.1 is specific, and its services performed in excess of 40 hours per week is considered overtime, therefore not reportable to CalPERS. And then if you have concurrent service in 2 or more positions, 1 or more of which is full-time, a part-time position would constitute overtime, okay? Or if you have 2 full-time positions, the position with the highest pay rate will be reported. The position with the lower pay rate, again, would be considered overtime and not reportable. Next slide, please. Now, because we want to, again, provide clarification for our employers and make sure that you have all the resources necessary to be successful in your reporting, when it comes to summer months specifically, we actually have 3 circular letters that really help define. For those of you that haven't been to a SEAC before or maybe aren't that familiar with CalPERS, our circular letters are items that we publish at CalPERS, and they're to clarify statutes and regulations. So our circular letters are considered our clarification of statute and regulation and can be used as reference for, well, really anything that you have questions on. A little bit later in this presentation, I'm actually going to go over our website a little bit, and I'll show you an easy way to find a lot of these circular letters. But these hyperlinks will actually take you to these ones specifically. So we have a circular letter on reporting compensation as earned, the proper reporting of overtime rates and summer reporting, which goes into more depth than even this presentation went into as far as how you're supposed to report your summer sessions. And then reporting compensation as earned examples. Again, that's another circular letter. It talks about compensation as earned, how it should be reported, and then provides examples of proper compensation reporting to CalPERS. So again, great resources for those of you that haven't been to a SEAC or maybe new with some of our county offices of education or our school employers. The circular letters are great resources. Again, clarification on statutes and regulations. Next slide, please. All right, we're going to shift away from summer session, and we're going to get into, excuse me, getting tongue-tied. We're going to get into compensation updates. There's really one major update for school employers that went into effect in 2025. It's actually an amendment to California Code of Regulations 574. And you heard me speak about CCR 574 in the first slide of the summer session reporting presentation. It helps clarify Government Code 20636.1, which defines full-time for classified school members. So CCR 574C, we noticed that there was some confusion, especially over the last couple of years, on what is full-time for classified school members, and then what is a full-time equivalent pay rate. So again, in order to provide more information, more clarification, and more tools in the toolbox for our school employers, we actually went and we amended CCR 574, specifically CCR 574C. Next slide, please. So previous to January 1st of 2025, CCR 574C read, when determining compensation, earnable and pensionable compensation for classified school members, full-time employment means 40 hours per week. And then again, payment for services rendered not to exceed 40 hours per week shall be reported. So it basically mirrored the language that defines pay rate in Government Code 20636.1. And we thought that adding additional language, even getting down to the exact calculation methods for full-time equivalent pay rates, would be beneficial for our school employers. And again, this is specific to classified school members. So next slide, please. As of January 1st, 2025, we amended CCR 574C. And so now the text reads, again, the first part similar, a member's full-time pay rate. They'll report the classified member's hourly, daily, or monthly full-time equivalent pay rate. And you'll see it goes into the FTE pay rate will be calculated. And then A goes into the hourly FTE pay rate and gives the exact calculation method for figuring out what the hourly FTE pay rate is. And so basically you take the annual base salary, you divide it by the number of work days in a year, and then you divide that by the number of hours in a work day. And you'll see that this is the true hourly pay rate for all of your classified school employees. Again, annual base salary divided by number of work days per year divided by the number of hours in a work day gives you the true hourly rate. The reason I repeated this and emphasized it is because you'll see for the daily and the monthly FTE pay rate calculation, it all starts with this base calculation for the hourly pay rate. Next slide, please. So 574CB, C1B, actually goes into the daily rate. And so you're going to see, again, you start with that hourly rate. It is the annual base salary by the number of work days per year, and then by the number of hours in a workday. That's how you get your hourly rate. Then you multiply that by 8. 8 hours is full time in one day, because 8 times 5, which is 5 full working days, is 40 hours per week. So again, get to the true hourly rate, multiply it by 8. That's your true full-time equivalent daily pay rate. And then C goes into the monthly. And this one ends up with a lot of numbers. I actually did a full-time equivalent pay rate presentation at this year's CalPERS Education Forum. And I go into how to even make this language a little more basic. I'll try and do that right now for you. So again, get to your true hourly rate, all right? And then you multiply the result by the result of multiplying 52 by 40. So 52 weeks in a year, 40 hours in a week. 52 times 40 is 2,080. Okay, so all you're doing is taking that true hourly rate, multiplying it by 2,080, and then you divide it by 12 because there's 12 full-time months in a year. So again, true hourly pay rate times 2,080 hours divided by 12. That gets you your full-time monthly, full-time equivalent monthly pay rate. Next slide, please. Okay, so we had a couple circular letters that came out in the last 12 months. The first one came out in 2024, and it defined full-time equivalent pay rates for classified school members. But because we did the amendment to CCR 574, we wanted to ensure that all of you had updated information. So we amended that circular letter. And on January 6, 2025, we published a new full-time equivalent pay rate circular letter to go into detail with the amendment to CCR 574, and just to give you the general information for doing the calculations, common errors. It's a really good circular letter. When we go into some of the website stuff a little bit later in this SEAC, I'm actually going to show you another great tool that you can use that makes this whole process even simpler. Next slide, please. So as always, we want to give you as many compensation resources as possible. We have our CalPERS website, which again, I'm going to talk about later. And we have our compliance and compensation reporting webpage. We have our circular letters. We have our public agency and schools reference guide, the Pearl, and a full-time equivalent pay rate calculator. We also have our Audit Compliance and Resolution Unit 1. They are a wonderful resource. They're actually set up to help you guys with any compensation compliance inquiries, specifically before your members go to retire or before our Office of Audit Services goes out and does an audit. You can email them at mou_review@calpers.ca.gov. We have 5 analysts that their entire full-time job is to help our employers with compensation compliance inquiries, provide sample language for written labor policies, advise on compliant publicly available pay schedules, anything compensation compliance related. They want to help you be compliant before we get to a point where there's an audit or members are going to retire and they're getting their compensation limited. So please use that as a resource. I know a lot of you already have. They're really wonderful analysts and they're here to help. And if we go to the next slide, we can answer any unanswered questions related to summer reporting and compensation updates.
Gary Carter. Yeah. Hey, Ken, we have one person that has her hand raised, Gary Carter.
Oh, great.
Okay. Go ahead, Gary. Oh, we're
Sorry, that was a mistake. I didn't know I had my hand raised. If you can clear
oh.
it.
Well, do you want to ask anything anyway, Gary?
Nope, I don't have any, but thank you for the opportunity.
You bet.
All right, we have one more question from Nancy Cho. Nancy?
I know that your presentation mentioned a lot about classified employees, but can you talk about faculty who are CalPERS members, what we need to be aware of?
Is there any specific question, or are you just speaking specifically to like a summer reporting or something like that?
Yeah, probably pertaining to some, because sometimes our 10, 11-month faculty who are in CalPERS may work a summer session, and we treat them as overtime.
Yes, that is correct for your certificated members. So I was talking about how Government Code 20636.1 and then California Code of Regulations 574C really hones in on full-time for classified school members. Well, full-time for certificated school members is a little bit different. And that's Government Code 20962. I believe it's 20962C, where it talks about employees. It's specific. It says certificated employees that are full-time on an academic year basis. So for those employees, they are granted a full-time year of service credit for the academic year that they work. So the certificated members, you would just report them as earned for the academic year. They get their full-time service credit, and you don't have to worry about the summer session reporting.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure. Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you.
All right, I think that does it for all the hands raised. Thanks again, Ken, for talking about this complex subject. There are a few questions in the Q&A, which I'm sure that we'll get to soon.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Brad.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Well, now I'm going to pass it over to Pua Yang, and she's going to talk about myCalPERS updates and system enhancements. Pua?
Okay. All right. Good morning. I'm Pua Yang, and today I'm going to go over the myCalPERS updates and system enhancements. I'm part of the systems support team under the Employer Account Management Division. As I'm going through the slides, if you have any questions, please feel free to enter them into the chat, and my team will be able to get those questions answered for you. Next slide. The first update is going to be on the test environment hyperlinks. The links are available on our technical resources page under the file readiness section. CalPERS grants permissions to employer accounts to have access to our testing environment to perform functions such as file validations before uploading them into production to avoid having mishaps or data misalignment issues and things like that. So that's what we're allowing them to access our test environments. Next slide. There are two hyperlinks available on the page, which may cause some confusion with the two. So today we're going to go over them. The first one is on the test environment and production areas. These are for accounts that's already loaded into our test environment. So CalPERS does a monthly data refresh from our production environment into a test environment. So if your account exists in the system before the refresh, your account will be provisioned into our test environment, and you will use this first link to log into the test environment with your production login credentials. The second link is for the test environment access only, and these are for new accounts created in the test environment. So keep in mind that since these accounts are created locally in the test environment, once the account or the system refreshes, those accounts will no longer be available. Next slide. And the second update is on Cognos reporting in our testing environment. As of December 20th, 2024, external users are no longer able to run reports in our test environment. Reports remain accessible in the production environment, so please run your reports there. If you require any assistance to get data out of our test environment, please email our employer technical support team, and we will be able to assist you in getting access to the required data. Next slide. Okay, let's move on to system enhancements. The first enhancement to highlight is the retroactive salary adjustment pay rate type validation. This enhancement was deployed January 18th, 2025. This new validation is to ensure that the pay rate type reported in a retroactive salary adjustment record matches what was originally reported in the earned period record. If the pay rate types do not match, the pay rate record will error and an error message will be displayed. Next slide. Then the second enhancement that we wanted to highlight is the maintain payroll records functionality. This particular enhancement is split into two phases. So the first phase will be deployed March 1st, 2025. When payroll records are reversed using the maintain payroll records functionality, the records and associated financials will be reversed as originally reported. So employees will be able to correct payroll data rate changes, such as PEPRA to classic enrollment without requiring CalPERS assistance. But if you do have questions or you do need assistance, please feel free to reach out to CalPERS and we'll gladly assist you. And then these changes will also ensure the financials are credited and posted correctly. Next slide. The second phase will be deployed April 26, 2025. The functionality will be updated to allow employers to adjust payroll across multiple appointments with the employer. Employers will also be able to review and adjust payroll records associated to an arrears determination. Next slide. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them into the chat, and our team will answer them for you.
All right, thanks for that, Pua. All right, we're moving right along. Now I'm going to transition over to Veronica Silvagill, and she's going to talk about classic benefit validation. Take it away, Veronica.
Thank you, Brad. Good morning, everybody. Today, I am going to be discussing a topic. It's called the classic benefit validation. It's a new process, so we just wanted to, bring this to your attention. I don't think that you'll see a lot of this in your areas, but we wanted you to make aware of it. So, okay, next slide, please. So let's, I want to tell you what the process is, why, we have this process. Which members will be receiving or be part of this verification process. Then a high overview of what the process looks like. And then I want to tell you a little bit of what we are doing, what our workload looks like right now for this particular item. And then tell you a little bit about your responsibilities as an employer. And then lastly, we will provide you with some resources. Next slide, please. So like I mentioned, it is a new process. So we had an internal audit a little bit over a year ago where our auditors found that there were some members that were being enrolled into the classic benefits, but in fact, they were not entitled to receive the classic benefits because up to then we were relying on them giving us the information on the self-reciprocal form. And, whatever they told us, that's what we took it as gold, and that's what the benefits that they were receiving. So because we found some people that, were mistakenly enrolled into that the classic enrollment, we have to now establish a procedure so that we can validate that the information is in fact correct. So now we are going to be adding a hold into the member's profile, which will not enable them to refund their contributions or retire. So until this validation is completed. Next slide, please. So the way that this process originates is after you have the member complete the self-reciprocal form and you go and enter the information in myCalPERS. So based on that information that is contained in the form, if the member is enrolling classic benefit and we don't already have information to validate it, basically based of reciprocal validations or validations that we have in the system, then we will generate the form for them to complete. And then once we validate the information, if there is any changes that need to be made, we will make those changes. Next slide, please. So the process is that we send a letter informing the member that we are now going to be validating their classic benefit, and we provide them with the form. The form can be sent, they can provide the form to their reciprocal membership system who can fill out the form, and then that will complete the process. Or they can establish reciprocity, or they can provide us with proof that they are members of our reciprocal system. So we can do that by them providing us with their most recent statement from the reciprocal system. And, or, have them, complete the form, through the previous reciprocal system. So once that validation is complete, we will go ahead and remove the hold from the member's profile. Okay, next slide, please. And then who's going to receive the form? So any new member that is now enrolled into the classic benefits will receive the form, but we don't send the form right away. So we give them a year for them to establish reciprocity. So if within that year, they don't establish reciprocity or we don't receive any other means of supporting their classic benefits, then we will, generate the whole process will begin by us issuing the letter and the form for them to complete. And next slide, please. So now, since we just started this, we know we need to do some type of, identification for the last 10 years. So we pull up, all of the members, a list of members who meet this criteria. So that they are enrolling classic benefits and that they have established reciprocity. So we have about 1,500 members in that criteria, and that's, those are the pending workflows that we are currently validating, and that's 15 members, and that includes all type of employers, such as schools and state agencies and the state. And then, if we are prioritizing them based on, their retirement, if they're retiring, or if there's any death case, or if the member is refunding. So we are prioritizing those cases. So now, if, based on the process, we have to make changes, the member may have changes that they were not expecting, meaning that if they were thinking that they were getting classic and then now it might be PEPRA, they might be upset. Next slide, please. So now, where do you come into this puzzle? So first of all, we want to highly encourage that when the member provides you with a self-certification form, is that you request confirmation from them, so verification that they are in fact entitled to the classic benefits. So we are highly encouraging, but of course it's not your 100% responsibility, but we recommend that because that could avoid corrections down the road, right? So and then of course knowing about this process, and if the member comes to you with questions, about the process, and then you can refer them to us, and we will be the ones addressing all of those questions for the member. And then next slide. So if the member has any questions related to this, is sort of a mailbox where we can reply to them, or they can also contact our customer service number. And that's the end of my presentation, so I will take questions. And I have also Cassandra El Salami, who is answering questions via the chat if you have, if you like to ask questions that way.
Yeah. Thanks, Veronica. We do have one question from Erica Burton. Erica, we're opening you up to answer the question. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning, Veronica.
Hi, Erica.
So I do have a couple of questions in regards to the adjustments that we have to make to change the employee's formula when we receive those reciprocal forms. So does the hold on the profile and the verification process that you're completing, being that it sounds like you're doing a year after, I'm guessing the form is turned in, do we
Yes.
still proceed with making the corrections to the employee's formula in myCalPERS? Or are we supposed to wait until that verification is done and the hold is removed?
So yeah, so no, when you get the information, if the member says that they are, classic, you will go ahead and follow the same procedure. But, I guess, again, we're highly recommending that you do get proof from the member to ensure that they are classic. So you don't have to, switch it back to PEPRA later if that is what we found, we find later.
Okay, so then it sounds like there's a chance that after the verification happens, we might have to go back and change them back.
Yeah.
Because just as
Slight
feedback,
chance, like during the audit, they only found like a couple of members. So it's not, it's not very likely, but, we do have to put some, some balance and checks and, in place. So that is why we are implementing this. But, for the most part, we haven't found, any that needed to be switched back.
just as feedback, I'm not sure how the other COEs operate, but as far as the districts in Riverside County, we get the reciprocal form forwarded to us from the school district, since the school district is the employer. So all we have to go off of is the form. So I mean, we can pass the message along to the school district to see if they can request on their end documentation to validate the information they're putting on the form, but I feel like that's highly unlikely to happen. So I guess it's good that you guys are doing it on the front end as far as the verification, but I do feel like we will see some back and forth after your verification happens.
Yeah, that could be, it could be, and that's, we're just trying to educate everybody, and I mean, and sometimes I think the member doesn't, like exactly just give us wrong information. It's just that they think that they kept their classic benefits, but maybe they had a break in service, or, there might be other factors that might kick them away from, from classic benefits. And that might be the cases where we have to, unfortunately do adjustments.
Okay. Well, thank you. That answers my question.
All right. Thanks, Erica. All right, back to you, Mr. Brad.
Thanks, Veronica.
Mhm.
Okay, moving right along. Now on to everybody's favorite topic, retired annuitants. And here to talk about it is our expert, Heather Porter. Heather, take it away.
Good morning. Thanks, Brad. Hi, as many of you know, and some may not, my name's Heather Porter. I'm the Assistant Division Chief in our Employer Account Management Division over our post-retirement employment and membership sections. And I am here to talk about retired annuitants today. Go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So as some of you may know, we did release our circular letter that helped to clarify our extra help. And that was published on December 18th, 2024. It was to clarify that substitutes can be retired annuitants when the need is present, and it does need to be for a limited duration. So I was hoping that we were hoping that this would help to clarify some of the conversations we've had over the last year regarding the use of retired annuitants, especially in substitute capacities. Just, to be clear, they should not be for an indefinite appointment. RAs are supposed to come in for limited duration and should be utilized for specific reasons. And that would be during a state of emergency to prevent the stoppage of business, or if you're experiencing like a void, something to prevent a backlog of work or a special project. Example of this that I've been given over the last year that from the schools throughout our discussions has been, for example, an attendance clerk. If they are not there for a day due to illness or vacation or several days, the school would face an issue of a backlog of work. So bringing in a substitute RA to fill that void is acceptable. As we've stated before, RAs should be not your first line of to fill these voids. If you do have non-retired employees on the sub lists, those should be the ones you go and give the chance of filling that void first. RAs are not to be considered permanent solutions to business needs. Next slide, please. So if a compliance review is conducted, CalPERS may ask for hiring documentation. What is the need for the RA? So the example of the backlog of work that you would be facing if they weren't there, the special project they're working on, or what emergency was there to prevent the stoppage of business you had to bring this RA in for. We would also potentially ask for signs of an active recruitment, not to be confused with the usage of the interim vacants, but just to see that you maybe have an empty substitute pool that you're trying to fill, but you haven't been able to with non-retirees. So you've resorted to using RAs to fill those voids. We want to just be clear that we understand that this has been a difficult time for all of us to kind of move ourselves more into a more compliant state. RAs have become very comfortable in the idea that they can supplement their income by working on a part-time basis or on call for the schools. And unfortunately, as we've discussed over the last year, that's not allowed by the law. You can't collect a pension from CalPERS and work for a CalPERS covered employer at the same time, unless there's these specific exceptions that apply. We want to thank you all for working with us, sharing concerns, and getting us to the place we are today, where schools are making strides to correctly use retired annuitants. We value your partnership on this effort. So I just wanted to say thank you for all that you've done to work with us and to gain understanding of the position that we're in. I'm going to go ahead and open it up for any questions you might have. You can go to the next slide. And one thing I wanted to mention also is that we will have our circular letter coming out regarding the interim vacant or the government code 21221H that does not apply to schools and states and only applies to the contracting agencies. We have that drafted and it's going through our approvals. So.
And not to get that one mistaken with the extra help substitutes, right? That one's for the interim appointments. So Heather, we actually do have a couple live questions. First up, we got Tina Nguyen.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I just have one question to confirm that if the district rehire a retiree and the pay is not listed on the district salary schedule, for example, a work-on coach that get paid with a lump sum over a period of a couple months. So for that assignment, district does not need to create a RA appointment with CalPERS. Is that correct?
Correct. If a coach is being paid by a stipend and not actually being paid consistently, they wouldn't need to have that on the they wouldn't need to report it as a post-retirement employment.
Okay, I got it. Okay, I just want to confirm.
That's about
And
the
that's all.
only exception there is when there's like a stipend being paid.
Yeah, 9 times out
Okay.
of 10, a coach is not reportable to CalPERS either.
Okay, I
Yeah.
got it. Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
All right, we have another question from Teresa Cooper. Take it away, Teresa.
Thank you. Good morning.
Morning.
So your last bullet says signs of an active recruitment is if using an RA while experiencing staffing issues. So if I'm hiring that retired annuitant to do the 1-day work for the attendance clerk that you used for the example today, that person's actually being put into that position for the 1 day. Does that cross over to the code that you mentioned that you're still doing the revisions for the circular letter on?
No, so the interim vacant under the government code 212218H is for higher level positions. It's almost like someone who's overseeing like a department or managing in a supervisory role. So I think that that's been a point of confusion over this last year when we've had these discussions where the interim vacant 212218H is getting confused with like the regular everyday absences or needs of that the substitutes tend to fill. And so with an attendance clerk, your reasoning behind that would be, if we don't have this attendance clerk, we're going to experience this backlog of work, or we're not going to be able to, meet the expectations that are there to report attendance. And so we had to bring somebody in. And so we use this RA to fill that void.
Okay, but you're looking for us to have active recruitment for what in that particular
That's more
case?
specific to like the sub pools. So we don't want to see where you have 10 bus drivers in a sub pool and they're all retired annuitants and you have, nothing out there showing that you're trying to fill in with someone other than retired annuitants. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
And we got one more from Deepa. Deepa, I think you're live. Go.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So Heather, I wanted to touch base on, for a community college district, we sometimes have hired retired annuitants who work as professional experts who will come and do evaluations or watch, like they're not like regular positions at the school district, but they're on an as needed basis for our instructional program, for example, at our police academy. And you and I have touched base on this before. The firefighters, the police academy, the emergency medical technician programs. So we, those are not positions when students are like right before the graduation, students may need to be evaluated, and then we need to bring in somebody. But some of those, a lot of our employees that come and do this type of work are retired annuitants from those professions, right? Because we're not going to be able to maintain a pool of just normal unretired people because they're so active. We do have some that are active and work, but they are also subject, like their main job is their primary duty, right? So they're not able to come and evaluate a student in the classroom at the hours that we need them to, right? So how is that going to be affecting? Because they're really not a pool of employees. We just kind of, it's by word of mouth, like who knows who to come and be able to do this kind of work out there for us, right?
Right. So I would consider that, obviously the RAs have the specialized skills that are needed to come in, and I would call that like a special project once or twice a year, let's say, or as needed, like you said, individually to evaluate the student, right? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes they also work directly with the students, like they do the testing of how to drive the CHP car, right? Like mock drivings and things like that. So we do report them. We give them an appointment on an annual we started doing that on an annual basis last year, you know, to be in compliant with, like, we end their assignment 6:30, then we give them a new appointment. If they're gonna be in the pool, like, even though we don't know they're going to work or not, right? Like, but we still give them an appointment just in case they do come and do any work for us. Sometimes they work every month a few hours here and there, just depending on what is needed for that program.
Mm-hmm. And that's where I would say that it's an annual kind of assignment that they may come in for these special projects to do these evaluations, and they have the specialized skills that are needed. And so I think what you're doing sounds good to ensure like the most compliant usage of them. You know, you're not keeping them on with an expectation that they're definitely going to work next year. You're saying, you know, you're assigned for this year to come in on this special project. And at the end of the year, we'll end this, you know, and if next year we still need that, you can apply.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I do have some people online that are answering questions. I'm not sure if anything's coming on the chat, but I have some assistants out there. So
your team's been answering all the questions. There is still one out there hanging around, and I'll just ask it out loud. What about using an RA as a crossing guard, Heather, which is not a position but paid on a timesheet?
ooh, that's a good one, because I know that they used to be included before PEPRA. And so I haven't had that one specifically about crossing guards. And in order to not give, you know, a not thoroughly researched answer, I'm going to have to get back to you on that one, because I do know that crossing guards used to be included and they were omitted in the PEPRA legislation. So I'm gonna have to get back to you on that one.
And that was Mara.
Okay.
Sorry for saying the last name wrong, Saibalhan. So we have your question in here, and we'll get back to you.
Yeah, we'll update
asked for
everybody on
details.
that. So, because I'm sure there's more than just Mara that has that question.
Yeah. And that does it for all of our questions. Thank you, Heather. Great job.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
And if you guys ever need any other backup documentation on this, on our YouTube channel, I actually presented on this topic at our board education day. I know that some of you guys have been utilizing that to provide assistance when looking into see when RAs can be hired or not. And, you know, the major question that we just always consistently hear is, can substitutes be used as retired annuitants? And I just want to make it crystal clear that they can. It just has to be done appropriately based on the things that Heather spoke about today. Let's go ahead and we're going to pass it back to Andy, who presented to us earlier. Andy, take it away on golden handshakes.
Good morning. I cannot open up my video. Start my video. Okay.
You're back up.
Good morning again. My name is Andy Nguyen, CalPERS team member. I want to take the opportunity this morning to remind the school employers about the required documents that the CalPERS needs to proceed with the implementations of the Golden Handshake Amendment for the school employers. Next slide, please. The Government Code 20904 allows the school employers to offer an additional 2 years of service to eligible members who retire during the designated window period. And the purpose of this is to provide cost saving for the school or create some permanent staffing positions, eliminate some permanent staffing positions that school would like to offer to the employees. And the eligible school members, employees, these employees have to be currently working for the school during this window period and retire during that window period. These members cannot be on unemployment insurance, on leave of any type. They have to be actually employees of the school district during this window period to be eligible for the Golden Handshake. Next slide, please. What kind of documents that we need from the school? Basically, for the school district, when you amend the contract or offer Golden Handshake to your employees, first you typically present it to the school district boards. They adopt the resolutions, but then you still need to present the same documents and resolution to the county superintendents. And that they will be the one that approve your resolutions before you can offer the Golden Handshake to your employees. So we will need those documents when you present it to the counties. They approve your resolutions and they certifies. And then at those meetings, the school also need to provide either some kind of analysis to say that by offering this Golden Handshake to the employees, it will reduce the workforce. It will create a permanent one vacancy positions, or the schools also can provide some kind of analysis to your board and the county office of education to say that is the cost saving for the school district in the next school years and stuff like that when you offer this Golden Handshake to the employees. Next slide, please. What I want to point out for the next two slides is some of the common things that we found during our audit of the school regarding to the Golden Handshake amendment when they offer this to your employees. There's a lot of school, when you go into your board, you just get the board sign the resolutions, but you did not provide any cost analysis. So the law requires the school to somehow present at least either the cost analysis to your board to prove that by offering this Golden Handshake, it will save the school some monies, or there's some kind of permanent vacancies will be created due to this offering. And then another common things that we found is that ineligible employee offer the Golden Handshake benefits. Remember, you have to be employed with the school before you be eligible to receive this Golden Handshake. And then another common thing that we found is when you have when you open up the window period, the member have to retire within that window period. So for example, if your window period is from July 1st to August 31st, that member have to be employed with the school during the window period and have to retire either starting with July 2nd and have to retire by August 31st. So those are considered a window period. And a lot of time we see is that the people might separate it at the window period, but they retire days after the window. There's a lot of people that separate in August 31st, for my example, and retirement date was September 1st. So those cases, basically the employees is not eligible to receive the Golden Handshake because they have retired outside of the window period. So just remember, the retirement date is very crucial and have to be within that window period. Next slide, please. And again, there's another common things that we find is that the state law, this 20904, basically state that you have to offer the Golden Handshake to all the eligible members during that window period. Basically, the eligible members is currently employees of the district. They are vested and they're eligible to retire based on their age and service. So there's couple of districts that we find that on top of that eligibility, they also have an MOU, labor agreements that they put additional criteria into it. Basically, they say the employee have to have 15 years of service and stuff like that. It's basically the state law would trump the MOU. So because if you add additional criteria into this offering, it doesn't comply with the state law because the state law say you have to be offered to all eligible members based on the 20904, not based on the MOU of the school. So for those schools who may have those kind of MOUs in place, please reach out to us and we can discuss and find a solution if you are planning to offer any Golden Handshake to your employees. And then there are also things where the timing of the resolution pass is also very important. Make sure, because you have to go to two board meetings, with one with the school district and one with the county. Make sure that you plan it accordingly, because we need those resolutions signed, adopted by your county office of education prior to the window period. Because there's some instance where the school district offer the golden handshake, open up the window period, but they actually didn't even present to their board to get it adopted in time. So those are the kind of situations that we find that may cause the school district to be out of compliance when they offer the golden handshake to the employees. So please keep those in mind. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us. Next slide, please. So what we have been doing since we find out all of these inconsistency is that every time when you want to offer the golden handshake to CalPERS to your employees, please reach out to us. We will provide you other documents. Along with that documents, we will kind of explain to you what we would need from the school district to proceed with this golden handshake offering. Next slide, please. And basically the main three documents that we would need is the cost saving analysis that you have to provide to your board, and if any kind of labor agreement that you say that the school district agreed to offer this golden handshake to your employees. And then we also would need like a board agenda item, the minutes that the board has approved, adopt that resolutions. Next slide, please. Here's our contact information. If you have any questions before you offer the golden handshakes, please email us at pensioncontracts@calpers.ca.gov. You can also go to our website. There's some additional information about our amendment process, about our golden handshake FAQ on our website. And we're here to assist you and make sure that when you offer this benefit to your employees, we have all the proper documents and is in compliance with the law. That's conclude my presentations. Anybody have any questions?
Doesn't look like we have any hands raised. Thanks, Andy, for your presentation.
Oh,
never mind. We just got one. We just got one. Tina Nguyen. Tina, go ahead.
Okay, I just want to have one question to confirm that the employee that retired with the golden handshake, they not allow to rehire by school district before their 2 years that they entitled to get 2 year survey credit. Is that right?
If they get rehired, they lose the golden handshake.
So basically, if they get rehired to the same school district, they will lose that additional, they will forfeit that additional 2 year. Because when you get rehired, your benefit will stop. We will calculate your benefit. You will lose that 2 years of service.
Even though after 2 years, do you have a limit time?
Let us get back to you on the limit, how long you have to wait before they can
Yeah, I thought only
We will
2
get back to
years.
you on that.
After that is okay. Yeah, so would you please confirm that with, can you send me email for that, or how
Yes,
can
we
I
will,
get?
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And I think that does it. All right.
Okay.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you.
Thanks for pulling double duty today. We appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And lo and behold, we have another person pulling double duty today. The ever knowledgeable Ken Noss. He's going to talk about compliance and compensation reporting webpage. Ken?
I think ever knowledgeable might be an exaggeration, but I do appreciate that. This will actually be a pretty easy, quick presentation for you guys. It's really just a reminder. We've done some variation of this presentation multiple times over the years, but it's something that's very near and dear to our hearts here in the Employer Account Management Division, and we've worked really hard on it. It's our compliance and compensation reporting webpage. It's a great resource for our employers, and it basically has almost all the questions that you have that are related to compensation compliance, the answers are probably on this page, unless you go too far down a rabbit hole. And then that's what that Audit Compliance and Resolution Unit 1 team is for, MOU_review@calpers.ca.gov. So they can go down the rabbit hole with you and help answer any of your more in-depth questions. So next slide, please. So the compliance and compensation reporting webpage, again, great resource for our school employers, all our employers really. And some of the highlight items that I like to focus on are, we have a ton of compensation compliance information. We've got references to a lot of our compensation compliance circular letters on that webpage. We have different examples that I'll go into a little bit more. We have checklists and we have sample language. Now, I do want to emphasize that me and my team have been taking a really hard look at this over the last year or so, and we have a lot of great ideas for updates that we're actually going to do to this webpage. So I'm going to show you how to get there. I want to encourage all of you guys to bookmark the webpage once you do get there, and stay tuned because 2025 is going to have some updates on this that I'll speak to a little bit. That is going to help you guys even more with your compensation compliance and give you an avenue where you don't have to wait for answers from, ACRU 1 or the Employer Account Management Division in general. You're actually going to have a lot of the answers to your questions at your fingertips. So next page, please. All right, so how do you get to the compliance and compensation reporting webpage? Well, go to calpers.ca.gov. And you'll notice there's a little search bar. Now there's a more, convoluted way to get here. This is the easiest way. In that little search bar, type in compliance. Nothing else, just compliance. Hit search. Next slide, please. The first option that comes up when you hit that search is going to be the compliance and compensation reporting webpage. Click on that link and it takes you to this screenshot right here, which is the home page for the compliance and compensation reporting webpage. Bookmark this if you haven't done it already. Again, great resource for all things compensation compliance related. Now, some of the things that we're going to be updating, for any of you that attended my presentation on compensation compliance flow and how to review government codes and regulations, how they work together with compensation compliance at the Employer Education Forum, you're going to know that we actually created various checklists. One of those checklists is on here. The rest of the checklists we're going to be updating in the in this calendar year, actually. But underneath the resources section is where you're going to find a lot of the updates that we're doing. And there's already some great resources there for you. Next slide, please. So the first resource is our publicly available pay schedule checklist, our PAPS checklist. This is directly related to compliance. So if you have a publicly available pay schedule, what are all the items that need to be on it for it to be compliant? And then what do you have to do in order to make it, an approved pay schedule? If you follow this checklist, everything on the surface of your publicly available pay schedule will check all the boxes literally for compliance for your PAPS. One of the things that school employers are still kind of getting a handle on is the full-time equivalent pay rate calculation and making sure that's on your publicly available pay schedule. We actually have another great resource that I'll get into a little bit later in this presentation that's going to help you with that too. So next slide, please. You'll notice on the resources tab, the second link that you can click on are examples of publicly available pay schedules. Now, the examples that we have on here are, fairly high level, but they give you a good idea of how if you go through that checklist, you mark all those boxes off, and then these examples show you, what that pay schedule would actually look like. And so on here, if you hit the little plus buttons, it'll actually give you examples of a step pay schedule example, which is very popular for school employers, a range PAPS example, which is very popular for your classified management pay schedules, and then a matrix example, which for our larger school districts that have a lot of different positions, but they tend to have pay scales that'll be the same for multiple positions, a matrix pay schedule example works really well. So if you are one of those larger districts and you've struggled with getting all of your positions on a publicly available pay schedule and really make it make sense, if you have multiple positions that have the same, step pay schedule, you can actually use a matrix example. So if you are one of those, click on that. It's a great avenue to simplify your publicly available pay schedule, make it more transparent to the public, and really even make it easier to go through the governing body approval process. Next slide, please. Okay, so we also have a special compensation reportability table. This has actually been a little point of confusion for a lot of people. So January 1st, 2013, we had the Public Employees Pension Reform Act, PEPRA. And prior to January 1st, 2013, all compensation outside of pay rate was called special compensation. So really, we just kind of carried that forward and kept calling it special compensation. If we're getting really technical, PEPRA members, all of their compensation is actually pensionable compensation, and that's how it is defined in the Public Employees Retirement Law. So we're going to update this table, and we're going to speak more to the two different compensation types: special compensation for classic members, pensionable compensation for PEPRA members. And then we're going to build out some of the examples and even make individual checklists for the different special compensation types that are on here. That's two of the enhancements we're going to be doing in this year to our special compensation reportability table. But regardless of that, it's a fantastic resource. There are 5 categories in California Code of Regulation 571 under special compensation. They're incentive, educational, premium, special assignment, and statutory. Those are all broken down on here, and you'll see that we have almost like a checklist that goes across the board there, and it has for miscellaneous, safety fire, safety police, classic, and PEPRA. For most school employers, you're really going to look at miscellaneous, classic, PEPRA. I do want to emphasize that we're going to be doing 2 updates to this table this year, because one of the, I wouldn't say complaint, but suggestion that we've had from employers is that when the answer is no, for example, the first line item there is bonus pay, and it says it's reportable for miscellaneous, safety fire, safety police, and classic, and then there's just PEPRA blank. All the blanks mean no. So bonus pay isn't reportable for PEPRA members. That's what that means. So if you're using this as a resource until we have some of the updates done, just know that if there's a blank space, it means no. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so I was going to talk about our resources with our compensation and compliance reporting webpage. Again, all of these hyperlinks will take you to places that you can actually bookmark. So we've got our compliance and compensation reporting webpage, circular letters, public agency and schools reference guide, the Pearl, and then something that I wanted to expand on because I was talking about the publicly available pay schedules and how you have to have full-time equivalent pay rates reported to CalPERS, and that is what needs to be on your publicly available pay schedule. We have our full-time equivalent pay rate calculator that is on our compliance and compensation reporting webpage. The only reason I didn't include those slides is because I think I've done 3 presentations on that in the last year and a half or so of SEACs, but bookmark the hyperlink and keep that on there, because all you need to do with that full-time equivalent pay rate calculator is enter in 4 basic items, and the calculator will actually do the calculation for you for full-time equivalent pay rates. Makes it way easier for our school employers. It's a resource that we worked really hard on. We're actually going to be updating that as well and giving you some more options with the calculation in this year. But even the way it's set up right now, it's a fantastic resource. I always tell school employers, you should really do the calculation yourself, especially with the way we've built out California Code of Regulations 574C. But the calculator is a great way to double check your work, make sure you're doing everything right. And it's also a great way to figure out like, oh, I'm not doing it right, but I can't figure out how I'm supposed to do it. Oh, that's right. CalPERS has this great resource called the Audit Compliance and Resolution Unit 1, who I can email at mou_review@calpers.ca.gov, and they can help me figure out what I'm doing wrong and help me get into compliance with my publicly available pay schedule and my full-time equivalent pay rates. So these are all great resources. Again, mou_review@calpers.ca.gov for your compensation compliance needs, questions, assistance. We're always here to help. And that's it for me. Thank you very much. Any questions? Next slide. There we go.
Doesn't look like we have any live questions.
I didn't think we would for this one. I think most people have heard me speak ad nauseum about all these things.
Yeah, I think there was another issue with the link, which I know we're working on behind the scenes to get you guys the right link.
Yeah, I think Erodice posted most of them in the chat already.
Yep, she has. All right, well, thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, next up, we have from our employer training section, Chris Vega, and he's going to talk to us today about employer training. Chris, take it away.
Thank you, Brad. So still morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Christopher Vega. I'm from the Employer Education, myCalPERS Employer Education and Training Unit, also known as MEET-U. And I'm here today to talk to you about and inform you about some education opportunities and resources that are available to you as a business partner with CalPERS. Next slide, please. All right. So first off, let's talk about our employer education class types. So real quick, using your emotion icons, is anyone new to using myCalPERS or new to CalPERS within maybe the last 6 months or so? Okay, I see a couple. Good job. Excellent. All right. So if you started within the last 6 months or so, you want to get familiar with CalPERS. So the first thing you would want to do is take one of our business rules classes. This is where you'll cover things like retirement and health laws and regulations. Also, you'll learn your roles and responsibilities with CalPERS. Now, once you get familiar with the laws and regulations, then you would want to take the myCalPERS classes. This is where we show you things like how to navigate the system, how to complete business health enrollment transactions, retirement enrollment transactions, process payroll, things like that. So together, these kind of work like a good way to put it, or good comparison to, is like driver's education. Think of business rules as your classroom portion of driver's ed, which is where you learn the rules and regulations of the street, or in this case, CalPERS. And the myCalPERS classes is like the behind the wheel training. We show you how to drive the car, or in this case, how to navigate the system. So yes, you could learn how to drive the car before you learn the rules of the road, but you might be getting tickets and fines along the way, and nobody wants that. So we want to make sure that you're familiar with the business rules as well as the myCalPERS portion. Now, the best part is these classes are not just for new employers. We welcome all employers. And we actually recommend that seasoned employers take our classes as maybe a yearly refresher. If you've seen my face before, you probably attended some of our classes, either virtual or in person. And I see a lot of people that have been in several of my classes, and they jump in our classes every time we come around to their area, just as a refresher. So let us help you stay up to date. Next slide, please. Now let's talk about the different types of classes that we have. So we offer self-paced online classes, which are available to you 24/7. So as long as you can access myCalPERS, you can get onto our online classes. Next, we have our instructor-led classes, which we give both virtual and in person. Our virtual classes are once a month. Our in-person classes are spread out throughout the year at our different regional offices. The in-person classes or both virtual and in-person classes are live and interactive. So with those classes, you're able to ask questions to the instructor, either watch the instructor do the presentation or show you how to process transactions, or if you're in our in-person classes, you can actually process the transactions along with the instructor. With those in-person classes, students will receive a login to our training environment with fictitious data to follow along with the instructor. That way they get practice with the scenarios. And we are currently working on making our virtual classes a little more hands-on by providing our virtual students training environment access as well. So look out for that in the near future. We're looking to pilot those classes hopefully in the second half of this year, so sometime in July. So keep a lookout for that. Now, in the meanwhile, we continue to offer resources that you can find on the CalPERS website to help you out before and after you attend a class. For business rules, we have our business rules reference and health guides available to you on our website. And we also have our myCalPERS student guides available to you. Now, we're going to dive a little deeper into where to find those and other resources in just a moment. But first, let's talk about another reason why it's a good idea to attend one of our training classes. Next slide, please. So, common questions. So besides the content that we cover, our classes are a great place to ask any questions you may have. And I always highly encourage in my classes for those in attendance that this is a time to ask your questions. So let's just take a look at some common questions that we've received in some of our past trainings. Next slide. So here's a health enrollment one that we received. Does an employee have to move to a new zip code for it to count as a qualifying event to change health plans? The answer is no. A move is considered a move, even if it's from across town or you're just moving from apartment A to apartment C. A move is a move, so as long as there's an address change, it qualifies for a plan change. All right, next slide. So here's a retirement enrollment one that we received. Does an employee have to move to a new zip code? Oh, I'm sorry. Should I enroll an employee in the membership even if they are only hired as part-time? The answer with this one is really it depends. If they are a current member, you want to enroll them regardless of the time base and tenure of the position, unless it is excluded by contract. So how do you determine that? What you want to do is you want to go to the person information tab and punch in their social. If they come up in the system, then they could potentially be a member. And that's what you want to look for if it says member yes or no. And that's something that we cover in our retirement enrollment class. We show you how to look up a potential new hire to see if they are already a member or not. So if they are already a member, then they would qualify for immediate membership regardless of the time base. Next slide, please. So here's another retirement enrollment question that we've received. Do I need to report unpaid leave of do I only need to report unpaid leave of absences for my employees? The answer is all leave of absences should be reported in myCalPERS, whether it is a paid or unpaid leave. And we get a lot of questions regarding this one, primarily because if somebody goes on, like, let's say a disability leave where they're receiving maybe 2/3 of their pay through a third-party source, they would supplement, if they have the time available, they may supplement with vacation and sick leave to kind of make up that difference. So in your mind, it's a paid leave, so why do I need to put them on a leave of absence? Well, there are some reasons why it is important to put them on a leave of absence. One reason is if they're on a leave of absence in the system, we're not expecting any payroll. So if you're reporting payroll, that's great. But once their sick leave and vacation runs out, they don't have any more time to report, and now there's nothing to report, we're still not expecting payroll. Therefore, you don't have to reconcile them or confirm their unposted payroll at a later time. Also, another reason, employees may be eligible to purchase that leave of absence service credit when they return. And the first thing we're going to look for when we receive those service credit requests is the leave of absence already in the system or not. If it's not, then CalPERS will reach out to have that leave of absence put in the system to match the service request or confirm the service credit request. All right, next slide, please. So here's a payroll reporting question that we've received. Will selecting the process report button before the payroll reporting due date avoid a late reporting fee? I know when it comes to reporting payroll, everyone feels if when you're under the gun and that payroll is due in a couple of days, just want to hurry up and process that report. But there's a little more to it than that. So before the due date, you must process the report with all valid records and also clear the reconciliation page. So what that means is besides processing the report, just as long as that report says posted, you're good to go with that part of it, but you also have to go and confirm anyone that was left off that report. That includes maybe your part-time employees, retired annuitants, or anyone else that may not have worked during that earned period. You still have to confirm that they had no earnings to report during that earned period. And there have been some updates. I know like zero payroll records copy forward now, and retired annuitant records copy forward now. So it makes it a little easier because all you have to do is confirm it's the same. For retired annuitants, you just have to plug in their hours and earnings and they're good to go. But you still want to make sure all of that is done before the due date. And that's something we cover in our payroll reporting class. All right, next slide, please. Now here's a general question that we often receive. What is the cost to have a trainer come out to our agency to provide training? You might be asking yourself, wait, you guys come out to our agency? Yes, we do. We provide that as an option, and the best part, absolutely free. Just like all of our trainings. All of our trainings that I've already mentioned, as well as this is what we call a special training. Our specials are also absolutely free. So let's talk a little bit more about our specials. Next slide, please. So when we come out to your agency and teach our classes, we call these specials or employer-sponsored classes. In any case, like I mentioned, they're always free. The best thing about these is we can tailor them based on your agency's contract and needs. And for the myCalPERS, we do them for both myCalPERS and business rules training. And we can do them in person or virtually. Sometimes virtual may work better, or maybe you want us to come out and do an in-person myCalPERS class so that you can get that same hands-on that you would get by attending one of the trainings at our regional offices. So remember, just like the driver's ed though, you want to do the business rules before the myCalPERS training. And the other best part of this is flexible scheduling. So you may look at our schedule and think, oh, they're going to be in my area, but those dates don't work out for me. Well, then you could reach out to us and we can work together to find an appropriate date that would work best for the employer educators as well as your agency. All right, next slide, please. So now let's take a look at our upcoming schedule. I know, why not just request a special, right? Don't have to worry about a commute, we'll come to you. Sounds amazing. But there are some reasons why we recommend, when possible, take one of our scheduled classes. So for one, our scheduled classes are open to all employers who, as you can see from the past questions that I went over, they ask some really good questions. So having a class full of different agencies in one room, they may ask questions that you never thought about, or maybe something you ran into at one time that you completely forgot about. And you're like, oh yeah, I have had that happen to me before. So in my experience, like I said, I always recommend asking questions. With our in-person classes or our virtual classes, you may get those questions asked or be available to ask your questions and be able to, get those questions answered in our classes. So let's show you how to find our schedule now. Next slide. So here's a screenshot from our updated website. So the first thing you would want to do is from the homepage, click on the employers link there on the light blue bar. Then that will expand that page you see below, and you want to click on the employer education link on the bottom right. Next slide. And this brings you to our employer education page. This is where you'll find a list of all CalPERS employer classes. Now, since we're looking at or focusing on business rules and myCalPERS classes, we're going to select the business rules and myCalPERS classes from the classes and workshops section. Next slide. And this brings you to the business rules and myCalPERS classes page. So first, we're going to take a look at the business rules schedule. So what you would want to do is click on that link for the 2025 business rules class schedule to expand that section. Next slide. And I have it broken down in 2 screenshots here for you. But the first thing you're going to see is the screenshot on the left. This is our structure on how our classes are broke down in the 3 days that our trainings take place. So as you can see, for school employers, day 1, whether in person or virtual, is going to be our business rules for school employers classes. So if you wanted to take a business rules for school employers and also an advanced compensation class, that would be a class on day 1 and a class on day 3 of the schedule. The table on the right includes our virtual and instructor-led classes for the remainder of the fiscal year. As I mentioned before, virtual classes are offered once a month, and instructor-led classes take place at our regional offices throughout the state. These classes are subject to change, so you want to access the Education tab in myCalPERS for the most up-to-date schedule. Next slide, please. And last but not least, let's take a look at our upcoming myCalPERS classes. So once again, from the Business Rules of myCalPERS classes page, you would want to click the 2025 myCalPERS class schedule link to expand that section. Next slide. And just like the business rules, our classes are also broken down over a 3-day schedule. So the screenshot on the left shows you the structure of our 3-day classes. Day 1 would be health enrollment and retirement. Day 2 would cover payroll, and day 3 would cover employer reports or Cognos. And virtually every other month, we do a system access administration class as well. The table on the right includes our virtual and instructor-led classes at our regional offices for the remainder of the fiscal year. So let's say the class you want isn't being offered anytime soon at your local regional office, or maybe it is, but the dates simply don't work with your schedule, or the class is already full. Then that's when you can reach out to us for a special. So if you need someone to talk to, you can go ahead and email us today. Next slide, please. And this is how you get a hold of our team, the employer educators, CalPERS_employer_education@calpers.ca.gov. So we're here to assist you with any training requests, needs, or any questions. We could point you in the right direction if you're seeking answers. All right, next slide, please. And that concludes our presentation. If you have any questions, you can ask them in the Q&A or you can ask them out loud.
It doesn't look like we have any raised hands. We do have a question. I think it'd probably be more appropriate though for the membership team to ask. It's more complicated one about going on a leave of absence and preventing their health benefits from lapsing.
Okay.
All right.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you all so much.
All right. Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome.
So that was a really great presentation, Chris. You really made employer education sound cool, or as my nieces would say, lit. Anyhow, moving right along. Now I'm going to transition over to Brad Hanson, and he's going to talk to you about multi-factor authentication. Take it away, Brad. Okay, so you guys hopefully you guys all saw either on myCalPERS or via our circulator we sent out on Monday that we sent out a survey related to multi-factor authentication. So back at the Ed Forum in October, we started to socialize this, that CalPERS is going to start requiring multi-factor authentication when employers log into the myCalPERS system. So, we wanted to make sure that we are going to launch it on a good date that's not going to heavily impact our employers. Like, for instance, we don't want to target to go out during open enrollment or maybe the first of the year when there's a lot of changes that are occurring. So we wanted to just engage with everybody to make sure that we got all of your questions or concerns addressed before we ended up selecting the implementation date. So if you haven't already yet, please either go to the circular letter or go to the My Message section on the myCalPERS page, and please take our survey. It's a brief 8-question survey. We're just, again, looking for feedback so that we can best roll this implementation out. One of the one piece of feedback we've already received from the survey is that The circular letter is a little misleading, making it seem as if employers will only have 2 different options for the multi-factor authentication, but it's actually going to offer much more than that. One of the concerns was about using your own personal cell phone. While that is an option, if you don't prefer that method, we also have other methods such as receiving a phone call or perhaps even getting an email. Again, once we do roll out multi-factor authentication, we'll send out another circular letter letting you know about how it's going to work and what to expect from that. So again, please take a few moments to fill out that survey, and we'll definitely take your feedback and apply it to the release. Okay, so now we've come to the section that everyone's been waiting for, the Q&A section. Heather and Diane, if you don't mind joining me. And we're willing to take any questions that you guys have on the presentations today, or even take some suggestions for next time's SEAC meeting. And I know that it's lunchtime and everyone's tummies are probably rumbling, but hey, we're here for you. We want to answer your questions. Oh, looks like we got one question from Erica Burton. Is she live? Yeah, go ahead, Erica.
Heather, this question is for you. And I'm not sure if this is maybe a silly question, but I didn't work here back when PEPRA happened in 2013. But as far as the school crossing guards and one of the messages that you replied to in the Q&A or the chat, I guess I've never heard of that, about the crossing guards being excluded. And I was just Googling during some of the presentations after yours, and I did find in Pub 33 where it talks about retired annuitants and that they can work as crossing guards. And I'm not sure if this might be because the specific employer that asked the question, it sounds like maybe their crossing guards are not set up like actual positions and have salary schedules for those. But is there something specific that happened regarding crossing guards when PEPRA happened?
Yeah, sorry if I didn't explain that appropriately. So the government code that used to talk about the conditions of post-retirement employment used to exclude crossing guards from the post-retirement employment reporting. They were called out specifically as not having to be reported, and that was removed when those conditions were revamped during PEPRA in 752256. So at that point, they needed to start being reported in post-retirement employment.
Okay, so it's just the reporting for retired annuitants specifically.
Correct. They used to be called out as not having to be subject to post-retirement rules, and now they are.
Okay, that explains a lot. Thank you.
Next up, we have Nancy Chow. Nancy?
So Brad, I was the one that put in the question in the Q&A.
Yep, okay.
Regarding this classified employee took a leave of absence to assume a temporary full-time position with our district. So, and there appears to be a hiccup of the situation where, because the leave of absence was placed for the duration of time, she's in this full-time position, and her benefit got canceled. So is there a way to prevent that? You mentioned something, we need to reach out to whom, and I got a reply from Veronica. It says membership reporting, but this is not about membership reporting.
This is for health, right?
About health benefits from lapsing.
Yeah, so, each case can be different, but I used to actually work our health benefits area. And so, when a member does go on a leave of absence, they're no longer, earning any pay from the CalPERS employer. They have the option of going on something called direct pay. And with direct pay, the member pays 100% of the premium, but it's billed to them directly. There's a form that the employer fills out with the member in order to get that set up. We'll take down your information and I'll forward this over to our health team and I'll have them contact you so we can get that straight.
Sure. Yeah, because I think this question service when it got canceled. So the benefit team was working with our HR group who put the leave of absence, and they did try to contact someone on the 6th of February. they said they need to consult with member election unit. But we never heard back since from them. So I just kind of double check with them. Did you hear back? They have not. So I don't know if something is already in there. It's just that they haven't gone back to us yet.
Yeah. I'd like to have someone look at the members account specifically.
Okay.
If you would,
Okay.
could you shoot me or Heather an email with the specifics, and then we'll take a look at it, and then we'll get the right people involved to make sure the person.
Okay. All right.
they
So
can be.
your email and Heather's email.
Send it to this email box. It's ERT at
One
CalPERS
sec. ERT
at calpers.ca.gov. Oh, Aaron, I
okay,
just posted it in the chat. Yep.
Oh, okay. Excellent. But just ERT, right? It's not the long underscore or whatever.
Nope, it's actually one of the simpler ones we got.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
And the only reason I can't answer that one offline, you have to look at each account. Each thing set up a little bit differently. And generically, yeah, you're gonna leave. I know you can be put on direct pay, continue your health, but there could be other issues involved.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a person who will try to be proactive, so we learn
Right.
something and then to prevent it from happening in the future.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
But right now, the person did not lose benefits. They did whoever they contacted CalPERS did reactivated, reinitiated her benefits. So no issues there. But
Okay,
just
going forward. What's the right
yeah.
one? I understand. Okay, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Somebody.
We will soon.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Yep, no problem. And now we got Erica Burton. Erica.
Hi, it's me again. This question's about projected contributions. In the past, these normally generated, I want to say the day after a payroll report was due. And it seems that now it's changed. So we've been starting to see them on the last Saturday of the month, even if it's before the file being due. So is that like a system issue?
Actually, we anticipated this question was coming, so we have a guest star with us today,
Yay.
Jonathan Hensley from our fiscal area, and he's here to answer your questions on that.
Hi, this is Jonathan Hensley. That would be an issue because we did not make a change. It's supposed to run the day after the payroll report is due. So I'm going to take that and I'll have my team work with IT to see if we can get that fixed.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jonathan. Do we have any other questions? All right. And, just a plug for next SEAC meeting. If you guys have any topics you want to discuss, please email us at the SEAC mailbox, and we'll definitely take those into consideration for next time's agenda. All right, so if that's all we have for questions today, I hope you guys enjoyed the presentation. And as always, I hope you have a CalPERific afternoon, and we'll see you again next time at the May SEAC meeting. Bye now.